Hello and welcome to Network Africa on Channels Television. I'm Anne Nwawadu. We start in Egypt, where the military, feeling the heat of the Israel-Hamas war, have moved to take up new positions close to the border between Egypt and Gaza to prevent a mass exodus from the Gaza Strip into its Sinai Peninsula. While Israeli bombardments halted crossings at the only exit point from the Palestinian enclave. Handout video released on Tuesday by the Sinai Foundation for Human Rights purported to show smoke billowing from an airstrike hits the Palestinian side of the Rafah border between Gaza and Egypt. Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi is concerned that the escalation between Israel and the Palestinians is highly dangerous and has consequences that could impact the security and stability of that region. Mr. Sisi says that Egypt is hoping for a negotiated solution to the Palestinian issue, which leads to peace and the creation of a Palestinian state. Egypt is also asking Israel to provide safe passage for civilians from the Palestinian enclave rather than encouraging them to flee southwest towards Sinai. And French military convoys have begun withdrawing from bases in southwest Niger, marking the start of a departure demanded by Niger's junta. This deals a further blow to France's influence in West Africa's conflict-hit Sahel region. Pickup trucks and armored personnel carriers laden with French troops drove through the dusty outskirts of the capital, Niamey, on Tuesday, just one day after the junta demanded the withdrawal. In a statement read on state television, the military government called for citizens' cooperation with the troop movement that it said would involve some 1,500 French soldiers leaving Niger via roads to Chad, a journey of hundreds of kilometers through sometimes insecure territory. A few dozen French servicemen flew out of Niger on a military plane on Monday. While also in news about Francophone Mali, the interim president has been discussing economic and security cooperation with Russia's President Vladimir Putin, have been discussed during a phone call. In that conversation, which took place via phone call, Colonel Assimi Goïta expressed his gratitude for Russia's support. This news was echoed by Russia's Ministry of Foreign Affairs in a statement on Telegram. And this is the third phone conversation between both leaders in months. Russian mercenaries from the Wagner Group are playing a prominent role in the Malian army's ongoing offensive against the Tuareg ex-rebels in the town of Kidal, including the army's capture of the strategic town of Anafis on October the 6th after days of heavy fighting. Vote counting is underway in Liberia's election, where President George Weah is seeking a second term after 6 years marred by corruption, allegations, and abiding economic hardship in Africa's oldest independent republic. The counting, in which some election officials are tallying votes in notebooks by lamplight, began after dark at polling stations across the capital. The commission will begin releasing provisional results today, and to avoid a runoff, the winner must secure 50% of votes cast. No major incidents were reported, and the voting was calm and orderly at various voting centers which were visited. Well, according to a team of observers from the Economic Community of West African States, logistical problems occurred and some waited hours to vote. Election materials were delayed by flooding in Sino and Rivers counties, and some ballots were also transported by canoes that capsized. Well, the National Electoral Commission has now extended voting in those areas. Burundi's recently dismissed central bank governor has been arrested on allegations of corruption. The Justice Ministry is accusing him of undermining the proper functioning of the national economy, passive corruption, money laundering, and misappropriation of public assets. He has not responded to these allegations against him. On Sunday, Burundian president fired by Mr. Mourenguerantouari and replaced him with Eduardo Normand Bigendako. He's being appointed to lead Burundi's central bank for 5 years, beginning in August last year. Attorney General Leonard Manirakiza stresses that the charges against him are not final and the investigation is still ongoing. He also said the accused is being treated in accordance with the law while he remains in custody. And over in Mozambique, 3 survivors and 4 relatives of the victims of a terrorist attack have sued the French multinational oil company Total Energies. The survivors and relatives, who are British and South African, are accusing Total of involuntary manslaughter and negligence for failing to protect its subcontractors. Dozens of people, including Total Energies subcontractors, were killed in March 2021 when Islamist militants attacked Mozambique's port city of Palma. The attack occurred near the site of a gas project partly owned by Total Energies. Mozambique's government claimed that 30 people died in that attack, but an independent journalist, Alex Perry, who investigated the attack, said 1,402 people died or went missing, including 55 Total workers. The lawsuit claims that Total Energies failed to warn subcontractors working on that site about the risk of possible attacks. The suit further accuses the Total Energies of lacking proper safety or evacuation measures, refusing to fuel a helicopter that would have evacuated its personnel. And our business correspondent is in Marrakesh for the IMF World Bank annual meetings. Let's hear more updates from her now. And let's go to Marrakesh for that.
It's still a very busy day back here, day 3 of the IMF World Bank meeting for 2023 right here at Marrakesh, Morocco. And it's been meetings after meetings after meetings. Yesterday, for instance, central bank governors from around the world were very busy, very busy. At first, they had to meet with the Commonwealth Secretary General, and then they met with the Managing Director of the International Monetary Fund. And so many things have been coming up from all of these meetings. Top on the list is emerging economies, African countries. Well, I guess that's just natural when we see that, it's holding in Morocco, in Africa. So a lot of attention has been on Africa and what's going on there, what's going on with the economies, what's going on with the issue of debt. A lot of questions are being asked about the source of the debt. You know, there's the issue of the sole charging policy of the IMF. There's the issue of using your revenue or generating revenue from within the country. That has also come up, that African countries do not need to depend on international loans or institutions for loans and financing. They can actually do it themselves if they can develop their resources. So these are some of the challenges right there. The issue of debt cancellation also did come up. In fact, that question was asked by our own finance minister, Mr. Waledu, during the meeting with the IMF Director General. What about the issue of cancellation? And Ms. Georgieva had to say that, man, they took about $1 billion during COVID to support countries, and they haven't recovered from that yet. So it's been kind of difficult to talk about debt cancellation at this period when globally we see economies are struggling, inflation, and then this interest rate. But at least the emerging economies are getting a lot of attention. They are challenged on one hand to look inwards and for African countries to trade among themselves. That's the idea of the World Bank president. That press was held this morning with the press. He had a meeting with the press this morning. So if that's on the one hand, Africa looking inwards, looking among themselves, trade and improve infrastructure that will make trade easy. But on the other hand, there's also the issue of interest rates coming from these international loans, and the smallest and the poorer economies seems to be the one getting the heavier burden of it. But it's an ongoing conversation right here at the annual meetings, and we still have a whole lot more to go. More talks will be coming from both the IMF and the World Bank, and of course, from the experts, economists, as well as central bank governors, finance ministers. They're all here, and certainly the crew back here will ensure that you get updates every time, Anne.
Thanks a lot, Ini. We'll be expecting those updates. And we told you earlier about vote counting going on in Liberia's election, where President George Weah is seeking a second term after 6 years marred by corruption allegations and, of course, abiding economic hardship in Africa's oldest independent republic. Counting is ongoing, but we hear there were some challenges during that voting. But let's now join our Channels TV correspondent, Maokwe Ogun Yusuf, who is on ground in Liberia as part of the Niger Africa Study and Observation Mission. Hello, Maokwe. It's good to see you. How are you doing?
It's great to see you, Anne. It's been quite an experience here in Liberia. The people of the country go to consolidate their democracy. As you noted yesterday, it is the fourth time they're going since the end of the Civil War in 2003. And for a number of Liberians who we spoke to in these elections, peace was uppermost on their minds. A number of them were very confident that their National Electoral Commission will be able to deliver on free and fair elections. And that was very important. And the turnout that we saw yesterday, I think we saw about almost, the reports said that about 97% of registered voters, or at least all the polling units, were open as at 8 o'clock. There was a huge voter turnout, which initially had a bit of, which nearly resulted in some amount of conflict yesterday. I mean, in terms of getting the voters in line, so to speak. But eventually, after everything calmed down and people knew where they were aligned, they were able to go ahead and do their voting, as the case might be. Well, as you rightly noted, counting is already in process. The polls closed at 6 p.m. yesterday evening, and counting is in process. It went on into the night. The polls closed at 6 p.m. and it went on into the night in many places. It was a very transparent process in the places that we monitored, in the places that we observed. As you can see in the visuals that you're showing there, they were prepared for it, knowing that they might not have electricity in all of the places that they were going to count. They were very huge commitments to transparency. That might have made the process a bit clumsy and cumbersome, but you could see that everybody was well coordinated and cooperated to ensure that the officials could do their jobs. Now, with regards to the places where voting couldn't hold, interesting is one of the issues that have come up in Liberia as they continue to consider constitutional reforms. They are right now in the peak of the rainy season in the country, and as you might appreciate, infrastructure is not exactly at 100% after a civil war. Voting couldn't take place in two counties. Counties are like states. In Liberia, two of the counties were inaccessible to election officials yesterday who were trying to deploy materials to those places because it had been raining almost every day. In fact, when we got to Monrovia, it rained almost every day until yesterday when miraculously we just saw blue skies. But as a result of that, that had swelled some rivers and made it impossible for some counties to get their materials on time. Two of the counties were affected as a result of that. In one county, they couldn't get across the flooded river. In the second one, a truck carrying election materials were stuck in the mud. So the National Electoral Chair announced that voting will be extended in those places, but she didn't say for how long. However, in the places not affected by flood or bad weather or any of these hitches, tallying, that's what we call collation, has now begun. We were able to monitor at the Samuel Canton Doe Sports Complex, where collation of the different polling units and persons are now being tallied together. And hopefully by around Friday, we should begin to get a clear picture of who has emerged winner in the presidential elections. But for some of the district elections, don't forget that it's a general election, so you also have National Assembly elections, what we will call National Assembly elections, also holding the senatorial and the House of Reps elections. Those results are already beginning to come out gradually, and people are already beginning to get a sense of who their representatives are. And
all right, Mark, so you've confirmed almost all my questions. I mean, voting is over, collation is ongoing, and of course, people are expecting things in the coming days. There were also challenges at that election. But what were the issues uppermost in the minds of Liberians, those you have spoken to about the polls, issues the president, new or old, will have to address in the office going forward?
I'm going to be very honest with you. Because I am here also as an observer, one had to be very careful in terms of the questions that one posed to residents. But for those I was able to speak with, all I could get, the sense I could get, was that of peace. Peace seemed to be the most important thing. As I speak to you right now, listening and monitoring local media, even though because a lot of people were not able to monitor or were not able to see the end of counting in their polling units, which is something we take for granted, that after polling has happened in a polling unit, people generally sit back and they wait until results for the polling units are declared and pasted before they leave. But because voting closes at 6 p.m. and counting goes on till really late in the night, you now have a situation where people, journalists and perhaps polling agents call into radio stations to give the results of the polling units and polling places, as they're called here. And one of the things you could immediately tell was that the moderators on radio, the anchors on radio, always will say, look, give only the correct results. And for those who have comments, you have to give it in a peaceful manner. So almost all of the people that we have spoken with so far, for them, peace, it seems to be most paramount. And I'm sure you can appreciate that after a really, really long drawn conflict, which saw them descend into war. I think that the people of Liberia are very, very big on the issue of peace. I'm sure, of course, there are a number of other issues that will be very important to them, which is determining whether or not the president will get a second 6-year term. Here, the president is in office for 6 years. Legislators are in office for 9 years for one tenure. There are a number of issues that are important to them. But I wasn't able to really get a sense of that maybe because of the questions I was asking as an observer, but also as a result of their background and the conflict, the long-drawn conflicts which they suffered.
All right, thank you very much. Mark Yusuf, Channel Civics correspondent who's on ground in Liberia monitoring elections there. We'll definitely be getting more details from you, and please stay safe.
Thank you very much.
Still ahead on the program. Nigerian students in South Africa celebrate achievements. We'll bring you the details of this and more. Please stay with us. Welcome back. And back home in Nigeria, 5 Navy ships, 2 helicopters, 1 deep blue patrol vessel and 1 French Navy ship are taking part in the 2023 editions of the exercise Crocodile Lift and Grand African Nemo, a joint maritime operation. The Chief of Naval Staff, Vice Admiral Emmanuel Ogala, who flagged off this operation, expressed optimism on the impact that they will make on the security of the Gulf of Guinea and the synergy with the French Navy and other strategic partners.
It's the combined flag-off of 2 major maritime exercises, Crocodile Lift and Grand African Nemo 2023, on board the NNS Kada, a Nigerian Navy landing ship on the Lagos water. The significance of these initiatives by the French Navy in collaboration with the Nigerian Navy, explains the caliber of persons present at the flag-off, which, according to the flag officer commanding Western Naval Command, is a rare privilege.
This exercise is aimed at contributing to the freedom of navigation in the Gulf of Guinea by strengthening the coordination of efforts against maritime insecurity.
The Chief of Naval Staff, Vice Admiral Emmanuel Ogala, who leads the charge, speaks on the reasons these exercises have become necessary, considering the numerous maritime threats on the Gulf of Guinea.
It is disturbing that most of the criminals in our maritime domain are targeting our economic lifeline, particularly issues of crude oil theft, illegal, unreported and unregulated fishing, piracy, sea robbery, and other nefarious acts.
Abilities are tested on the air, land,
Follow me.
and sea, with the aim of improving capacity to handle real-life situation in search and rescue, anti-piracy, anti-narcotics, illegal bunkering, fishing, and other maritime vices.
And it's very interesting to interact on a new area, which is amphibious warfare, very specific. And Nigeria is the first coastal state in Western Africa to develop such capability. So I'm very impressed. And
This year's exercises witness concurrent activities within the 5 maritime operation zones of the Yaoundé architecture. And the participating navies hope it will send the appropriate warning signals and create an unconducive atmosphere for maritime threats on the Gulf of Guinea. Chris Alems, Channels Television News.
Let's head to South Africa now, where the Congress of Nigerian Students at the University of Johannesburg recently hosted the Niger Day Fiesta under the theme Celebrating the Pinnacle of Nigeria's Achievements. The Congress of Nigerian Students is a student organization body established for the welfare, career development, skill optimizations, educational advancements, and promotion of employment opportunities for Nigerian nationals at the University of Johannesburg in South Africa. A South Africa correspondent, Innocent Semosa, reports.
The discourse here is centered around the theme of celebrating the pinnacle of Nigeria's achievements. Attendees at the Niger Day Fiesta were treated to a showcase of Nigerian culture and cultural exchange.
So most people, they fall under their king, but when you are...
As Nigerians, we've celebrated the independence on the 1st of October. So we, as students also outside the shores of Nigeria, we felt there's a need to bring ourselves together to celebrate the independence of Nigeria and also the excellence of Nigerians. So, for example, this year we've themed it the Celebrating the Achievements of Nigerians.
But it wasn't just about entertainment. The Niger Day Fiesta also featured discussions on visa and immigration challenges.
We have issues related to migration issues, related to passport renewals and visa issues.
The Minister of Home Affairs, who I respect so much, has made 1 or 2 comments regarding it, saying that he's going to settle the backlog. No, because many people are prejudiced. I've seen a lot of them 3 years ago, 2 years ago. They can't go up, they can't go anywhere, they can't get out of the country, they can't even relax in the country because these things are pending. So it still has not been addressed, even though the minister has made 1 or 2 comments with regard to that. And I'm deeply disturbed as an immigration attorney based here in the country.
Still in the mood of celebrating Nigeria's independence, Professor Abijade Adebijola from the University of Johannesburg shared some success stories of Nigeria.
I think Nigeria has grown into the giant on the continent. Again, if you look at the mainstream media, you might not read some of those things, but I'll tell you for a fact. If you look at medical, like diaspora, for example, there's so much data points there. And Nigerians doing impossible surgeries, Nigerians in different countries doing incredible things. Back home, our startup and innovation sector is growing. Now we have a new Minister for Innovation who is a young man himself. Things are moving very fast, and it's not all doom and gloom. I don't think it's all negative.
Some say this is a celebration of Nigeria's achievements and cultural diversity. From Johannesburg, South Africa, Innocent Samos, Channels Television News.
And that's where we draw the cutting on Network Africa for today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Anne Nwawadu.